to the Monsters of the Gridiron podcast.
And we're coming for you. Squad up, 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 squad up.
Oh man, we got people in the chat already. What's up, guys? I see Blue, Cliff Victoria, Plank, Bruja, CC, Will's even in the chat himself. He probably was in there before he got here. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode. Walt, I got Will, I got Samo. We're here. We're going to talk a little bit about OTAs today, but also take questions from you guys in the chat. Whatever Bears questions you guys have on your mind, throw them in the chat, and I will put them to the side, and we'll answer those after we just chop it up for a little bit. Go ahead and say what's up, Walt.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing?
That was a good one. Will, what's up, man?
All is well, guys. How y'all doing today, baby? Hey, Maniac Monday, let's go.
Maniac Monday. He said, what's up, Samo? How you doing, man?
Yes, sir. What up?
I guess
What's up to the squad in the chat?
I guess what we'll do first, then we'll talk about Marcedes Lewis. We just signed him back officially today. It's actually official. We got our tight end 3. I think probably have one of the best tight end rooms in the league now with Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, and Marcedes Lewis bringing his leadership. Samo mentioned it earlier, so I was going to hit you with that in just a second, Samo. But he's got that veteran presence. He's a leader, and he's a guy who's one of the better blocking tight ends in all of the NFL. He's like having a third offensive tackle out there, actually. And having him back really solidifies that tight end room. Samo, what you got on Marcedes Lewis? What you think about that, man?
And everything you just said and more, man. I think the leadership was something that I think goes underrated. I think on that offensive side of the ball, there aren't a lot of vocal leaders. So you want to get a guy in there, man, who we heard last year was that vocal leader and provided that vocal leadership to the team, when they were going through their rough spurts and, keeping everybody on course. So I'm happy for that reason. And I'm happy because, like you said, he is that third offensive tackle that you put in the game. He's just a mauler as a blocker in the run game as well as in the passing game. I think he was underutilized last year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what how Shane Waldron utilizes him this upcoming year.
Yeah, I agree with it, man. I think it's a great signing. Cliff makes a point here that he thinks the signing shows the Bears weren't really happy with the other tight end 3s they brought in. I think it was more something. I always kind of felt like Marcedes Lewis was always going to come back. I thought just his skills as a blocker would be perfect with Gerald Everett and Cole Kmet because they're both such great receivers that have some blocking skills, but he could even help them become better blockers long term as well. And then those guys, I think the reason he wasn't signed before camp is he didn't need to be here. He's 40 years old. He has his own regime that he's been his own workout regime that he's been doing for 17 plus years. And it also gives those younger tight ends, even to Tommy Sweeney's, a chance in mini camps and OTAs to stand out. And it doesn't prevent one of those guys from making the practice squad or even still making the roster. Someone could get hurt. You never know what could happen, knock on wood, but those guys still could stick around and carve out a role at some point.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And it also gives the Bears a good balance across all 3 tight ends. You have Gerald Everett, which is more of, a pass catching tight end. You have your tweener in Cole Kmet. And then you have Marcedes Lewis, who's more of your blocking tight end. And Samo, you alluded to the leadership aspect of it, which is probably the main thing why they brought him back. And also with guys like Sweeney and Brandon Bates, they have probably the largest wealth of knowledge to pull from they're ever going to have in their career. Yep. So even if we only have him for 1 year, then he goes off and retires, he can impart all his knowledge on one of those younger guys who could step into his role. So it's all about building for the future.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I think it's something that having all 3 of those tight ends, it's going to probably be our best position group on the roster. I think before it was kind of battle. I think our running back room is stacked. Our wide receiver room is stacked, but it's top heavy and doesn't have as much depth. And then it's our cornerback and safety rooms are both really stacked. But right now, I think 1 through 3, because that's all you have at tight end is 3. Whereas wide receiver, we're going to keep 6, potentially 7. We have 3 studs there, but at tight end, it's stud, stud, stud. Because I consider Marcedes Lewis a stud for what he brings to the table as a blocker. He's only going to play 20 to 25% of the snaps, but when he's out there, he's a valuable addition to the team, and he brings the leadership and veteran presence that we need. I love the move. I think it's just Ryan Poles continuing to do the smart moves that make sense, things that we've even talked about all offseason, honestly. I don't think this was a huge surprise to any of you guys, was it?
No, not at all. I'm just waiting to see if they're gonna bring back Unique Ngagwe or Carl Lawson or even Campbell. So that's the surprise I'm waiting to see, because I know a lot of people, they're clamoring for Unique, but again, Dominique Robertson, he's that wild card. If he can somewhat evolve along with Austin Booker, then they got DeMarcus Walker. It might be an interior defensive lineman or a Carl Lawson that would be a better fit in the short term on the defensive side of the ball. But like y'all are echoing right now, bringing back Marcedes Lewis, veteran presence. He's a de facto left tackle, great mentor, veteran, brings the calm to any storm. Like he told me last year when we talked, when I asked him what's the key to playing almost 20 years as a tight end in a very physical, in the trenches position, and he says mental and keeping your temple clean, keeping your body right, and things like that. So I'm like, yeah, it's easy to say that for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, but we're talking about 20 years, guys, at a very demanding, tough position. So I think it's a great under the radar signing and acquisition, a reacquisition, because he showed last year what he could do, and probably could have had a better role, with better play call and things of that magnitude. But when his number was called, whether it was on a naked bootleg or whether it was blocking as the 6th offensive lineman, like, he did a phenomenal job ensuring that the pocket stayed clean and running lanes were open.
Another thing that Swifty kind of hit on is that he didn't come into camp early or into the OTAs and the mini camp early because he has his own off-season regimen, and hopefully some of these guys on the team go and pick his brain about that. I'm sure guys on both sides of the ball will decide to talk to him about how did he hold up for 19 years, man, in the NFL in a very, like you say, physical game. And he's going up against linebackers and defensive linemen, man. He's doing it all, and he's battling in the trenches, man. And those guys typically don't hold up for 10 years, let alone 19. So I'm hoping that kind of rubs off on some guys. And who's to say whether the Bears don't keep a 4th tight end, man? We don't know how the roster is going to play out. We got the new rules for the kickoff, and we now have a new offensive coordinator who didn't keep a fullback last year. So we could still keep a 4th tight end, man. I think those guys would decide their own fates, man. I think if I'm in that locker room, I'm just going to keep on fighting. If I'm one of those tight ends, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to make you put me on this roster. And then now having a guy like Marcedes Lewis that I can learn from, I think that helps me more than it hurts me.
Yeah, Tommy Sweeney's that guy for me. I like Tommy Sweeney a lot. I think he's an underdog. I love his story. He's been in the league a couple years. I thought if we didn't re-sign Marcedes Lewis, he was my favorite to win that job. But we're trying to win this year, and Ryan Poles has sent that message and made it pretty clear, rookie quarterback or not. Like, look, I got an all-pro free safety to fill the hole that was left when Eddie Jackson left, and then he shored up the interior of the O-line with Coleman Shelton and Ryan Bates. And when it comes to a tight end like this, we already have 2 studs at the position. And we know Shane Waldron will occasionally even use 3 tight ends. So if you got a guy like Marcedes Lewis, who was just in the building, he's willing to come back on a 1-year deal, not much money. Like, it makes too much sense. It's one of those moves that we know that our past GMs in the past Ryan Pace and those guys, even Jerry Angelo, probably wouldn't have done it. A lot of times when these moves make too much sense, those guys just don't do it. But Ryan Poles has been different that way. And it's something that I think as fans, we have to learn. We're probably going to love a lot because when even last year, a lot of us were talking about Unique Ngakoue before it happened. And then what would he do? Go out and make the move. He does stuff like that all the time. He knows what the fans want. He has his pulse on the fan base. And he's not ever going to make moves just to make the fan base happy. But it's because a lot of our fans are kind of smart and look at our roster and know, like right now, most of us look at the roster and like we could use another defensive end. And Ryan Poles knows that. He's always on the same page. And I love that about him. And it gets me even more excited about this team's future.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm absolutely.
Definitely.
I'll tell y'all what, like I said, where we stand right now, like you said, the position battles, the secondary is a position of strength, because we don't even talk about Greg Stroman. We don't talk about Terrell Smith. Though Stroman came in against Washington last year and had an interception. So we got so much talent on top of talent where the competition is going to be so stiff where a lot of people, unfortunately, won't be able to make this roster. Like I said, going to get Kevin Byard, that was a great pickup because he and Jaquan Brisker, they could be interchangeable because they both are physical. They both can come downhill, hit, and cover. So when you're looking at the only remaining piece is, I would say, like you said, defensive tackle and or defensive end, to ensure that rush package is intact to really get pressure on the quarterback. But when we get on the other side of the ball, looking at, like you said, a tight end position, I think I think Marcedes comes in and really truly solidifies that room because you know what you're getting in Cole Kmet, you know what you're getting in Gerald Everett. But now you got the third layer who's a dog that's going to really come in and really, like I say, solidify that edge on the left side of the line. Or right, wherever they line them up at, either on the other side or right, or on Braxton Jones, it gives either tackle the insurance policy against when we play, let's say, like we play the Texans, either against Will Anderson Jr. or Danielle Hunter. So it just gives our tackles a good insurance policy as well. So a great sneaky signing, bringing him back, veteran presence, staple in the locker room. I'm excited, guys. And like I said, hopefully he can continue to impart his wisdom on Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, and get those guys, the wise advice for them to keep growing professionally.
Yeah, I think that's a great point there. He's going to help our tight ends grow. I know Cole Kmet is already at a point in his career where he's ascending, and Gerald Everett he's a veteran. He's not a young guy, but he's still in his prime of his career, a guy who can still get better as a blocker. And then Will made a point there when it comes to our safeties. Jaquan Brisker talked about it, and I think this is something that's really important about our defense this year and how it's evolving. Is last year, I want to explain kind of how this works and what he means by it. Some people have talked about it, but most times with defense, when you're playing Madden or guys who have played Madden, they're familiar and they think, the free safeties on the left side and the strong safeties on the right side. But even in Madden, you flip the formation depending on how the offense comes out. The thing is with the defense is there's a free safety. The free safety is the guy who usually plays more back. They play off the line of scrimmage. They play the center field role. They drop into coverage a lot more. The strong safety's responsibility usually is to come up in the box a lot more, play more like a linebacker and be able to fit the run gaps. And you got to take on blocks and be really physical to do that. Last year with the Bears and ever since Adrian Amos left, honestly, Eddie Jackson has always played specifically free safety. But if you watch Bears tape and you guys look at it, Eddie Jackson isn't always on the left side. So what that means is the defense knew the offense would know where our free safety was and could figure out our alignment better just by where Eddie Jackson was on the field, if he was on the left or the right. That's where your free safety is. That's how your coverage is. and Jaquan Brisker is the strong safety. With this defense that we're doing now, while Kevin Byard is going to be technically the free safety and Brisker will be the strong safety, they're doing a left and right. Kevin Byard is always going to be on the left. Brisker is always going to be on the right. But what the offense doesn't know is when the free safety is supposed to be on the right, Jaquan Brisker is playing free safety. If the strong safety is supposed to be on the right, Jaquan Brisker is playing strong safety. So they're not going to switch. So the offense has no idea which guy is going to drop into coverage and which guy is going to come up and support the run on any given play. And that's something that is, I believe, a tremendous advantage for our defense and something that can really help us this year, especially because, I mean, defense, when they can figure you out, and especially in an Eberflus defense like this, a cover two, anything the offense can do to figure out what you're doing and be able to take something from you is ways you can lose, and they can just chip down the field and pretty much beat you like that. This is a huge advantage for our defense now, not only because they're doing it, but also Kevin Byard's ability. He can not only drop into coverage, he's been doing it for years, but he also has been awesome at coming up and supporting the run. Jaquan Brisker, we know how awesome he is against the run, but at Penn State, he was a free safety as well. He's a guy who can cover. He's got speed. He can fly all over the field. So I think it's something that's really going to help out our defense this year, and it's underrated aspect. As much as I loved Eddie Jackson, it was a weakness the last few years. Not only could we not do things like this and switch it up, but Eddie couldn't even tackle when guys got to his level, let alone come down and play in the box and take on blockers and stuff. So it wasn't even an option for Eberflus in the past, and now it's going to be a tremendous advantage for our defense. I love that, though.
Absolutely agree with everything you just said. I think that Eddie Jackson had become a liability as for our team in coverage and as far as in run support. And what this does, this new change where we're going left and right as opposed to free and strong safety, it allows us to disguise coverages. You don't know who's going to be where. You don't know who's dropping back and who's coming up. You don't know if both of these guys are going to stay back. You can't decipher which coverage we're going to be in just from our alignment or to seeing where Eddie Jackson's going to be and him telling you, all right, we know Eddie's 90% of the time going to go back. So we're going to just assume that he's going back because this is a pass, this is a long situation, and such things like that. So that'll allow us to disguise coverages. And given the fact that we're playing a lot of younger quarterbacks who are in their second year and first year early on, I think that's going to make this defense little more tricky going forward. You know, quarterbacks are going to have to hold the ball for that extra second, which is going to allow our defensive ends and our defensive line the opportunity to get there with the rush, or the quarterback's going to make a mistake and throw the ball into harm's way. So this is a good thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out on the field, but I'm liking the way that sounds.
Yeah, it allows them to be more aggressive is one of the other things there as well. Yep. I mean, they can just play more aggressive and attack offenses more. We got a question here, though. This one's regarding Will. I have a question for chat. Will Swift take? Oh no! Dang it! I thought he said Will. I saw Will, and I thought he was talking smack about Will. Will Swift take his beard full Wolverine or not? Nah, we're gonna go nah on that. What is Jonathan Owens? A box safety, a big slot, a dime linebacker? I think Flus has something up his sleeve. I think Owens is kind of a tweener. I think he can play a bit of both. I think if you had to classify him as one, I think he'd probably be probably more of a box safety. He's really good at tackling. He has, like, off the top of my head, I think it was like 227 tackles in the last 2 years. I just talked about him in a video the other day. So he's a guy who can definitely support the run. But he also, if something happened and he had to play, we could probably still continue playing the same style of defense where he could play free safety or drop in and support the run. I don't think he's necessarily as good as Brisker or Byard when it comes to dropping into coverage, but you're not going to expect to get that from your third safety. But Elijah Hicks, same thing. He's a guy who can do both. he's also better versus the run. But if he can get better in coverage, so I love our safety room. It's probably our deepest room on our entire roster. We still got other guys, Tavarius Moore, AJ
Wendell
Thomas,
Johnson. I like
Wendell Johnson, and Adrian Colbert.
Don't forget Adrian Colbert, baby.
We got more safeties than we do linebackers right now. Like it's kind of wild, yeah.
No, it was nice to see, and hats off to the coaches too, to being willing to adapt their defense. You know, I don't know if it was just Eddie Jackson's inability to do that style, or was it the coaches not thinking, fourth dimensionally in this case?
He couldn't do it. He couldn't tackle. Yeah, he just couldn't tackle. I mean, it was something. It was even when they would run directly at him, even when he was dropping into coverage, and when they got to him, that was one of the biggest issues with our defense over the last few years is Eddie's inability to tackle. You need 11 guys on defense that can tackle, and having a guy who just can't tackle, that's what opened up a lot of those big runs. It would be when you play the defense like we do when there's a gap defense, and guys have to maintain their gaps and stay in position. If everyone is in their gap, they're going to run right at Eddie Jackson's gap. It's a way to attack this defense, and it was something that's been underrated. It was like even when he wasn't in the box, they could still say, we're going to go out of our way to attack that guy because he can't tackle. And we think our running back's going to make him look like a fool. And the Packers did it a lot. They would specifically run right at Eddie Jackson with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and they'd be like, come get him. And it was tough on us. So Kevin Byard, I think that was something specifically that Ryan Poles identified. It was probably Eberflus, because we know this is Eberflus's defense, but I always give Ryan Poles the credit. But Eberflus probably went out there and said, look, I need a free safety that can come in here and tackle because this is garbage. And Ryan Poles went and got him one that's an all-pro. And still, he is over 30, but, I mean, his career is not over yet. This is a guy who's still playing really good football.
Flus is very familiar with Byard because they were in the same division when he was with the Colts. Byard started his career in Tennessee. So, he's familiar with this dude, man. And you're right about Eddie, man. Eddie last year, man, like I said, he was a liability, man. You can't trust a guy like that, especially if you're trying to teach hits principle to younger guys. You have your veteran leader out here whiffing on tackles, who's not showing who's not giving the effort. That was my problem with Eddie. I can see if he just was a bad tackler, man. He didn't give effort on a lot of those plays. You would see him whiff, and he just didn't want the contact. And that was it was sad to see. And hey, good luck to Eddie, man. I'm gonna leave it at that because I did like Eddie in his first couple years as a Bear, but we saw him going downhill, and it was time to move on, man. And I think that Ryan Poles did a great job of solidifying that room because I think Owens was a sneaky good signing, man. As a third safety. Like, that's a sneaky good signing that I think has been underrated that we haven't talked about a lot this offseason. But that dude, he did some really good things for the Packers, and I expect him to do even better with the Bears.
Yeah, I agree with that one. He's a guy who probably haven't talked about a lot, but he's a guy who can play, and it shores up that safety room if something happens to one of our starters. I know and even Elijah Hicks, who's our fourth safety, he started 8 games over the last 2 years. But one thing Poles or Matt Eberflus saw firsthand with Kevin Byard is if you can tackle Jonathan Taylor, one of the better running backs in football, he knows you can tackle and you can play because JT, hey, I know a lot of Bears fans. I know Indy's right over there, but a lot of Bears fans don't see a lot of Colts games. But Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs I've seen in a while. He's a stud when he's healthy. Did you have something, Walt? I'm sorry.
No. I wanted to finish up with just the simple fact it's nice to see these changes because I always view football in terms of the defensive side of the ball as just a game of deception. So seeing a move like this, it just really gets me going.
Yeah, I think that's something that Eberflus prides too. I mean, it's something he's also trying to do with his defensive tackles. He wants these guys interchangeable. Eric, actually, I was just about to say his name, but Zach Pickens is a guy who we saw it last year. A lot of the Bears beat reporters were like, why are they playing these guys out of position? They're like, Zach Pickens is a 3 tech, and they're playing him at nose. Javon Dexter's a nose, and they're playing him at 3 tech. Matt Eberflus wants that. These guys are young enough, and they saw something in them that they believe they can play both. And just like I said with the free safety and the strong safety, if you don't know which one of your defensive tackles is the 3 tech and which one is the nose, it's just another small advantage in the chess game that is NFL offense versus defense. So that's what Matt Eberflus likes. It's something that I really like about Matt Eberflus. I know Dobbsy was in the chat earlier, and he said something about he thinks the cover 2 is a bit outdated. And I will say, I don't necessarily agree with that. I would say if we were running Lovie Smith's cover 2, yeah, I'm tired of it. Eberflus's defense is a bit of a hybrid. He does a lot of different things. We saw him actually start to blitz more last year, and we saw the defense really look a lot better and show a lot of different variations of the defense, especially after we got Montez Sweat. So I think that's something that Eberflus, the first year, it was kind of vanilla, just like with the roster, he was laying the foundation. But now that he's in year 2, or after when he got to year 2 last year, he was given more looks. The defense was expanding. And now in year 3, he fixed that hole where now he can confuse teams with the safety position, do the same thing with the defensive tackles. And then you got killer corners everywhere. This is a defense that is just stacked and loaded. I think Flus is going to show people this year, and this is a team that's going to win games just off this defense, and that's going to allow Caleb Williams to really be comfortable. And then he has guys like Keenan Allen, who's an all-pro, and his job is, hey, making things easy for the quarterback. And then he's got DJ Moore, Romo Dunze, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett. I ain't even going to mention my boy DeAndre Swift. Woo, I'm hyped.
Yeah, man. It's amazing how much this roster has turned around, and this will be the Ryan Post's third season. His third season, man. He's turned this roster around completely. He stripped it down to bare bones, where we were the worst roster in the NFL, and just 3 years later, we have a young quarterback who's probably going to be a generational talent if everything plays out the way that we think it should. And then the roster around him is just stacked. All of those positions that we didn't have any players that are now positions of strength, safety, wide receiver. We haven't had a wide receiver room this good in ever. And as a Chicago Bears fan, I can't ever remember having a wide receiver room this good on paper. And tight ends, as we just talked about, defensive backs. I mean, cornerbacks, man. We're deep at cornerback, and that they're well coached. We see guys go down, and then guys come in, and we don't typically miss a beat. And I think the only place on this roster right now that we can probably bolster and to just really feel good about it is what Will spoke about, which is at defensive end or maybe at defensive tackle, just another dog pass rusher. And, either one of those guys are going to be developed this year or we're going to bring someone in. But I'm confident that they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Who was the guy we signed at defensive end, I think, from the coach? Jacob
Martin.
Yep. Okay, Jacob Martin. Because like I said, I really haven't done a lot of research on him. I saw the name, but I met him at the gala, and he seemed like he was a pretty good guy. But I need to see some tape because who knows? With proper coaching technique from Eric Washington, he might be an under the radar achiever that we're not even noticing right now. The guy that we got, the unrestricted free agent, the rookie, what's his name?
Oh, the UDF and Jamry Cromon?
Jamry. Yep.
Yeah,
I love Cromon.
Yeah, he's another one. Depending on because see, I think we go into training camp before we determine whether we need to bring Unique in or Carl Lawson or Calais Campbell and just see what we have. Because we got Keith Randolph out of Illinois. So, but with them guys being rookies, we all know it's a transition because, again, we are in win now mode. And I don't think that Caleb is going to have shackles on his feet. I think he's going to have full 100% access to the playbook. So he'll be allowed to make mistakes because you got a great defense, you got a great punter. So I think honestly, like I think we're gonna do pretty good. I think it's gonna be higher than what people anticipate because of the infrastructure is long. But I think the key is if the line remotely stays healthy, and that means Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins. If the line stay, because I'm not opposed to seeing Coleman Shelton at center and seeing Ryan Bates at right guard, and just have people right now fight not only to get in that starting lineup, but to make this roster. Like, last year we thought because PJ Walker had $5 million in guarantees, he was a lot. And what happened? He ended up getting put on the waiver wire. So I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen to someone like a Nate Davis, but at the end of the day, we do need to have some healthy competition where we can, if the line does what they need to do, especially from the interior side, man, Caleb is going to eat, I'm telling you. Because the skill position players we got, like we said earlier, other than I think when we had Brandon Marshall, Martellus Bennett, and Alshon Jeffrey, and I think Devin Hester was there for about a year, but then he went back to returning kicks. But when you look at the 3 wide receivers, Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, we ain't even talking about Bayless Jones and Tyler Scott. We ain't even talking about Roshan Johnson, and Khalil Herbert. Now he's RB3. So do we keep 5 running backs with Blasingame and Travis Homer? What about Ian Willer? Ian Willer runs a 4-3. So we got so many options. The versatility is crazy. And to me, healthy competition makes the overall team great.
No, I agree. Couldn't agree more. That's one thing Poles has done is really improve the roster from the bottom up. Do you have something there, Walt? My bad.
No, actually, I wanted to post something to you guys. I saw an article coming out of the Saints camp about Trevor Penning, about it's a possibility they might actually move on from him this season. What do you think about the Bears maybe bringing him in and moving him towards a guard position?
I thought he got into trouble for something, didn't he?
Yeah, he has a bit of a mean streak. I know he got tossed out of camp. Was it last year or the year before for choking his teammate?
Yeah, he choked a teammate.
But the guy is 6'7", like 320.
I mean, he could definitely play guard and be like a guy who could play right tackle. I don't see the Saints giving anybody away with the position they're in right now. They need him unless we offer something that probably Ryan Poles doesn't want to pay. Someone said something about Jake Martin here. I wanted to address this because this is something Adam Mason has said as well. We all know he hates Unique Ngakoue, and he said Jacob Martin is our Ngakoue, and I like Jacob Martin. I think he was a fine signing as a back of the end roster piece, but this is a guy. I just saw it was 28 years old. He had 2 sacks last year. He has 18 in his career. He's not Unique Ngakoue. Ngakoue has 18 sacks in a year and a half. Like, this guy has that in his entire career. He played all year last year and only had 14 total pressures in about 200 snaps. He didn't get a ton of snaps, but 14 pressures, 200 snaps. Yeah, that's a decent what's the snap per pressure, but not a guy I think is a huge difference maker or a splash guy. I think he's competing for a roster spot mainly with someone like Dominique Robinson right now. But if we re-sign Unique, he's a huge upgrade over a Jacob Martin to me. I don't think maybe they may play a similar role in this defense, but as far as caliber of player, Unique's got a bag of tools on him and a repertoire of pass rush moves that I think too many people out there are just overlooking because he didn't come in here and produce last year. We also got to remember, you guys watched the games. You remember how many times he was this close to getting a sack? There were 3 or 4. Like, if he picks up those sacks, his numbers were fine. And that was without Montez Sweat for half the year and getting hurt and missing a bunch of games at the end of the year. And he still could have had 8 sacks. So Unique Ngakoue, he's not an all-pro or anything, but if you can get him on a $5 to $8 million a year deal, he can come in here and be a huge upgrade as a situational pass rusher. Because right now, who are those guys for us? Austin Booker, who needs development. Dominique Robinson, who right now is a huge question mark, and we don't know what we're getting. Jacob Martin, same thing. He could flash some upside, but he's not a guarantee. And then we got DeMarcus Walker as our starter, and then you're hoping for a UDFA to stand out like Jamry Chroma. But we already know one other thing, too. Even if a guy can get after the quarterback, we saw it last year with Trevis Gibson and Terrell Smith. If they can't set the edge, they're still not getting playing time in this defense, because that's something you have to be able to do. And Unique actually is decent at setting the edge and can shed blocks. Even when he's getting overpowered and can't actually hold the edge, he can shed the block and still make plays in the run game. He had a ton of tackles for loss the year before last year as well. So he's a guy who can make plays against the run. I'm a Unique Ngakoue fan, and I do think he's going to be back. And if he does come back, I'm going to celebrate the move. I think it'll be a good one, and I think it'll help this defense out, even those young guys. He taught Jervon Dexter the cross chop last year. Let him teach Austin Booker and Jamry Chroma the cross chop. Why not? That's then a move that this guy can have for his entire career in Chicago. So I like Unique Ngakoue. I value that guy. I know a lot of people don't, but I just wanted to have my little rant about him real quick.
But you made a good point about it, Swift, because the games that I know for a fact he whiffed on 4 sacks. That first game against Green Bay, he whiffed on. He did get Jordan Love once, but he whiffed on him once. That Tampa Bay game, he had Baker twice and bounced off. So
that's the first 2 games of the season. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's 3. And then against Denver, he whipped on a sack too. So that's 4 sacks. Just like we can recount the dropped interception by Jalen Johnson. Like, okay, you on social media showing your get off and all that. Man, show me your wrap up when you get to the quarterback. that at this point, that's what I want. I'm not worried about your get off. You can get to the quarterback, because the way Sweat, the way a lot of times he pass rush and occupy 2 people and free up, whether it's Dex or Zach or Bill or whoever's on that other edge, you're going to have the opportunity to get around that tackle and get the sack. But when you get there, if you will, man, look, that doesn't impress me. I know if Calais Campbell, which, again, I don't really think he fits the mold of our defense, but I think he would be a good body. But then a Carl Lawson, he can set the edge and get you 6, 7 sacks. It's just like at this point, we already know whoever comes in, it's a situational type situation. So it's a stopgap, because, next year's draft in the first round, the first 2 rounds, it's going to be at least 10 edges. It's going to be at least 5 or 6 defensive guys. So with that first and that those 2 twos, I can see us going younger. And matter of fact, the number 1 pick probably might be a James Pierce out of Tennessee, one of those guys, one of those top edge rushers. So whoever comes in this year, realistically, it's a temporary stopgap. So even though we want to put a lot of emphasis on it, but long term, they're not going to be here. They're going to come in. They're going to, get what they get short term. Hopefully, we get some productivity, way more than what we got last year. I think we got 4 sacks last year out of Unique before we got hurt. Yep. If you can get 8 to 10 out of one of these guys, you get a lot of bank, especially for, like you said, Samo and Swift, 3, 4, 5 mil. You get 8 to 10 sacks. That's great. That's a great value signing. Jake Martin, I don't know. Like I said, last year had 2 tackles, 2 sacks. So, volume like that, to me, it looks more like a camp body, if you want to be honest. So I didn't see if he had any guarantees on his contract that he signed. But, again, linebacker core tight, secondary tight. We get one more body in there. They could get pressure on the quarterback, because once we stop the run, and that's what I was looking at too, the first 10 games, what running back truly jumps out of who we're playing? that we can't really put these offenses in a one-dimensional type approach.
Right.
Like nobody we're playing in the first 10 games have a running back where we got to be like, oh shit, he might get us for 80 yards or 100 yards, because the first game of the year, you got the guy that they signed from Dallas. What's his name? Tony
Pollard.
Tony Pollard, and I think he's coming off an injury, right?
Yeah,
I believe so. Yeah.
And then week 2, they got old boy from Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon. Joe
week
Mixon's
3.
got talent. Don't sleep on Joe.
Mixon is bad. That's a dog.
Yeah, but when he going between the tackles, I'm not worried about stuffing him. You know what I'm saying? Because he ain't jump cutting. He's really a north-south type of guy.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, when you look at who doesn't really have an impact for running back with our secondary and linebackers, that only makes our defense more fierce, because if we get pressure on the quarterback with the front 4, the back 7 is going to eat. They're going to feast.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to worry about play action and things of that magnitude, because we've set the edge. We've taken away the running lane. So we've made the offense one-dimensional.
Mm-hmm. That's what Flus wants to do, man. That's the whole thing about the cover 2 defense. If you can get pressure with 4, every area of the field is covered in the cover 2. You got your deep middle, you got your 2 deep backfields covered. Then you got everything underneath covered. So that's the beauty of, this cover 2 defense. But you have to have the defensive line to really make it, jail, because you don't want to have to continuously blitz all the time. That's why we saw Flus reluctant to do that last year. And I agree with you all on Jacob Martin, man. That's just a camp body, man. He looks like a favorite to an agent. We'll bring him into camp, and if he does something to make the roster, he does it. But looking at, his stats and his history, the guy's never had more than 4 sacks in a year. He's too small to set the edge in this defense. So I'm not banking on him doing anything. I'd rather have Dominic Robinson, really turn it on this year and see what he does. They say he's gained some weight. He looks more physically imposing. So hopefully that helps him a little bit this year. He can develop some more pass rush moves. And like you all said, Yannick Ngakoue is the best option for us to bring in. I don't care what everyone else says. We know this guy is a proven pass rusher. He didn't have the production that we wanted to see early on last year, because he was the only pass rush threat on this team. Let's just keep it real. Like, Justin Jones wasn't doing anything until we got that other pass rush threat in Montez Sweat over there. And then Yannick Ngakoue also looked a lot better. The entire defense looked a lot better. You have to have multiple guys that can rush the passer, so that offenses can't, focus on you and, focus on stopping you, because if they chipping you on the way out, and putting a little bit putting an extra guy over there on your side, it's going to be hard for you to, eat and get to the quarterback as fast as you like. And like you said, he whiffed on a few last year. I fully expect him to be motivated, and more than anything this year, he got hurt. People were talking trash about him. He hears it. He sees it. Like, people doubting him. The man is a pass rush threat, man. He has a tool bag. And more than anything, like you said, Swift, I'd love to bring him back so that he can help coach up those young guys, and Booker and Jeremy Croma, and continue to help Dominic Robinson and Big Javon Dexter, man, because those guys are still developing as well. Like, we have a lot of guys who could turn it on this year, man, and we may have everything we need, but we do need that extra guy just to make sure that we're going to be ready and hitting the ground running, because I don't want to be, going into the season slow this year. I want us to hit the ground running. I want our dogs to be hunting early on in the season.
Yep.
Yeah, the other thing really about Jacob Martin too that we're not talking about here is the missed tackle percentage. You're looking at it as a career number at 29.5%, and he only started 14 games 1 year for Tennessee. That number is an atrocious when you really think about the limited play time and all that. If you're a starter, that's it's one thing. You can make up for that. But if you're given only slight opportunities and 30% of the time you're whiffing on the tackle, no, sorry, not going to fly.
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the biggest points that's missed with Yannick Ngakoue last year, we touched on one of them, was the missed sacks. He could have had a couple of those. If he could have had those, I think people's minds would have been changed, because sacks are huge, and that's all people really look at with defensive ends. But he also He just played barely 3.5 games with Montez Sweat last year. He had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and he was getting after the quarterback. He had 4 quarterback hits in those games. He was playing much better with Montez Sweat. You project that over a full season, he had well over 10 sacks. That's a major projection going from 3.5 to 17 games. But just in the time where he was on the field with Montez Sweat, he looked a lot better. And no shot at Jacob Martin. I do think he has some potential, but like Samo said, I think he's a guy he's here to compete with Dominique Robinson and Jamry Chroma. That's not the statue of player that Unique Ngakoue is. Ngakoue, if Ngakoue is signed, he's here to compete with DeMarcus or Walker for the starting job or to be the main rotational guy off the bench. He's not a back of the roster guy. He was one of 3 or 4 players in the entire NFL to have 7 straight years of 8 sacks. He's kind of ridiculous as a player. I know he's not perfect, and yes, he's bounced around, but he is the cream of the crop as far as free agent DEs go or options we have to upgrade the position. And then as well, if there's a guy who's close, it's Carl Lawson. Now, I do like Jacob Martin, and Dante, you're wrong on that. I have watched his tape with Indy last year. I watched 4 or 5 of his games, and I do see some he has some burst off the line of scrimmage. He has a little bit of length. I did not see him setting the edge, and that's my biggest thing I've learned in the last 2 years with this regime, because we all saw it. Like, I wasn't, unless you were blind, we saw Terrell Lewis and Trevis Gibson beating the brakes off of offensive tackles. I was in Indy with Foster like 5 feet away from him. And Trevis Gibson and Terrell Lewis were consistently beating the starting tackles and the secondary tackles on the Colts. And what they couldn't do, set the edge. Guess what? They're gone. So yes, Jacob Martin, he does have some get off. He can get after the quarterback. He has some burst, but I don't even think he's as good in those areas as Terrell Lewis was. Terrell Lewis was a guy who he really got off the edge. I'm still shocked he hasn't caught on anywhere, but I do like Jacob Martin. I'm not, and that's why I was trying to say, I'm not trying to take a shot at the guy. I like the signing. I think he has some upside, but he's not on the level that Unique Ngakoue is. And I've heard multiple people now say, like, he's our Unique Ngakoue this year, and so Poles isn't going to sign him. I don't agree with that. I think Poles is he's probably still in contact with the Unique Ngakoue's agent, and probably will be until he signs with us or another team. And that's my prediction on that one.
Well, I'm going to tell y'all this, though. I can tell y'all somebody who knows that Montez Sweat is a force multiplier, because he got a 3-year, $31 million deal in Arizona with $27 million guaranteed. Go look at Justin Jones' numbers before Sweat got there. 0 sacks. But after Sweat, he had like 4 or 5 and was constantly in the backfield. So
even Javon Dexter, too. Dexter really got better.
And Javon Dexter, at the end of the day, he ended, when you look at his numbers compared to the kid, Jalen Carter's number, like Dexter ended on a much higher note with a much higher ceiling than
Carter did.
And Carter did. Yep. So the Montez Sweat effect, because he wasn't asked to do that in Washington, because you had Chase Young, you got Jonathan Allen, you got Deron Payne, but you saw his true toolbox, whether it was power, whether it was speed, like whether it was him elevating the jump up and knock passes down, like you truly saw how versatile Montez Sweat was. So if you get another dog on the other side when he's getting double teamed and, knifing and like I said, crashing down, taking out guards and center, opening up for the 3 tech, 1 tech, another edge, like when he has the potential to lead this line easy to about 40, 50 sacks. Easy. Well, Cliff said, what's the bigger need? I'm going to say 3 tech versus nose tackle, because Andrew Billings got the nose locked down.
Yeah, I kind of
And
would
like
have
Swift
to.
said earlier, like Zach, if you go back and look at Zach in South Carolina, he was penetrating. He's more of a 3 tech, but they had him playing 1 tech. And then Garon Dexter was playing 1 tech at Florida, read and react. Now he playing 3 tech, shoot up field and shoot and get them. His biggest thing is getting them pads down. Because when you 6'6" and you standing up right, it's easy for a guard to get up under them pads and just shove you out the way. But when you, because he's powerful, I think we all can see that, and he's even more powerful. He's more shredded this season than he was last season. So he has the power, but you nullify that power when you're not the lowest guy and you're standing upright. You nullify your own power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Eric Washington is going to get that out of him. Travis Smith, look, this is Travis Smith 3rd year. Last year, prior to getting sweat, I wasn't happy with what I was seeing. And the year before that, we went 3-14. Okay, we're gonna give you a pass because we know you didn't truly have no dogs on that defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't keep giving passes, guys. Now it's time to shit to get off the pot.
100%. As far as that one, I think just because it's Eberflus's defense, I'll say 3 technique. I mean, it's a cog in this defense. It's big for Eberflus, but like I touched on earlier, I think he wants both of those positions to be interchangeable. So in that situation, the key might be having a nose tackle that isn't Andrew Billings, because when Billings is out there, he's the nose tackle. There's no interchanging it and having him play 3 tech. Even if he can occasionally get after the quarterbacks, that man is tried and true, the definition of a nose tackle. So it might be a bigger key for this defense to have somebody step up, take his job at nose tackle, and then we have 2 interchangeable defensive tackles with Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter. If that happens, I think that would be the biggest key to the defense. And if Pickens doesn't step up, then nose tackle might be a need heading into next year, even with Billings on the roster.
I can envision that Keith Randolph doing something like that, being that type of player, man, because that's what he did at Illinois. He played 1 and 3, and I think he played more 1 than he did 3, actually. And I thought that when he did play 3, I thought he played well. He was pretty decent. He has a really good get off. He has the strength. I don't know if he has that NFL strength just yet. Maybe next year you could see him being more of a guy who could just interchange in between each role effortlessly. But this year he may struggle against some of the stronger, more powerful offensive linemen. But he's a guy who plays with good leverage. That's one thing I like about him. But I absolutely agree with what Will said about our boy Gervon Dexter too. Like, if Gervon Dexter can get those pads down and come off of that ball, which I expect him to be a lot quicker this year because he's a lot leaner. If he can come off of that ball, then, man, he is going to be a force to be reckoned with and stay low. Like we said, he has to stay low. I think he got high early on in the season. He was coming up too quick, showing his chest. Guys were getting putting those hands on his chest, and then, it's over with. Once an offensive lineman gets his hand in your chest, I know I played defensive line. Once that guy gets his hand in your chest, you're done. If you don't get it down quick, if you're not able to swipe it down quick and reset, you're done. It's on to the next play after that. So if he can get that down, man, which I fully expect him to be able to, because he was doing it last year and he was becoming more consistent with it. And now we have a guy like Eric Washington, who I'm looking forward to seeing, what he does to, change the defensive line and what he does to help those guys. And just the overall defense. I want to see what influence he has on this defense. I know he's going to influence the defensive line because, like Will said, Travis Smith didn't do much with those guys last year. He couldn't get those guys humming for the past 3 years. So, having a guy who's proven the ability to get the best out of defensive linemen is going to be good for us as a team. And, seeing what else he can bring to the defense overall to try to influence Flus into doing some different things, man, because we don't want to get afraid of with Eberflus, man. He gets a little bit vanilla sometimes, so we don't want to get too vanilla, man. If we get our guys humming on this defensive line, though, we might not have a problem with playing vanilla. That's the other point.
100%. Well, you got something, Walt?
Yeah, no. I was just gonna say I wouldn't worry too much about that, Samo. We now actually have a real defensive coordinator this year, unlike last year. So, I think he's got more of a mind than say an Alan Williams, and we'll just kind of push Flus in the right direction in terms of that. But to answer Cliff's question, I think it's an interesting question because I don't know. I find both positions actually in a very good spot at the moment. And you have Javon Dexter, who's ascending now, and he has that extra year under his belt of experience because he was going from that read and react offense to a more I'm just going to shoot the gap kind of 3-tech player. So to make that adjustment, it takes time. It depends on the person himself and how they can adjust. And like you said, he's been doing the work. He looks lean. He looks tough. He's shredded. He's ready to go. So in terms of your starting 3-tech, you have it sitting there in the palm of your hands. Now you just got to mold it into the object that you want it to be. The same thing with Zach Pickens. He's one of those guys that can jump either or now. And it looks like last year was more of just a feeling out testing kind of phase for him to see if he could do that job as someone who could jump from either side in terms of the defensive tackles. And then you always have Andrew Billings, and he got rewarded last year with the extension. So he's your de facto nose right out the gate. So in terms of defensive line, if you had to pick up somebody, you got to go somebody out on the edge. There's no point in going in inner right now until you see either in training camp or throughout the season that's a cause for concern and area that you need to address.
And one other thing that we haven't talked about is that's going to help this defense and the defensive line especially is having an offense that's going to move the ball and score some points. We as a defense we gave up an average of 22 points a game last year, which isn't bad in this year in this NFL. But if we can slow that down, and most of those points we all know from watching the games were in the second half of games where our defense just got worn out and then they started giving up points later in the game. So, that'll be different. I expect us to play with some leads this year. If we're playing with a league, that helps in a defensive line, man, because you can make a team one-dimensional and they have to pass and we're up 2 touchdowns and they have to pass to get back in this game. Those guys can fly off the ball now. You know what I'm saying? And, and if the offense is holding the ball for longer drives, then I'm not as tired. Every time I go out, if it's not a 3 and out, the entire first half of a game, which is what we experienced for the past couple years, that wears a defense down, especially those big guys up front on the defensive line. So that's also going to help the defense, having that guy and having that big leg punter guy who's going to be putting the ball inside the 10 and inside the 5-yard line. Those things are going to help this defense to become that top 5 defense that we all believe that they can be or believe that they are. Because I think we all are in agreement that we have a top 5 defense, man. It's just about putting it together.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
And
Samo, preach it, baby, with that collection plate, baby. Top 5 defense, top 3 punter. I'm going to go ahead and say a top 10 quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Offense should be in the top 10 with all the weapons we got. Like you got to believe it and say it with your chest. Tell them, Samo. You got to believe it. You got it. Like you can't be half in. And it all boils down to if the offensive line stays healthy, Caleb is going to put up some John Madden football numbers. I truly believe that. Guys, we potentially would be in a position to have 3 1,000-yard receivers. I'm telling you. I can do
we
it.
got people out there saying DeAndre Swift got 1,000 yards receiving too, right?
Now I say 1,000 total yards rushing and receiving, but 1,000.
Hey, DeAndre's a weapon. We just
He is. And you know what? I had DeAndre last year in fantasy. He always got to the 1-yard line and 2-yard line, and then guess what? Here come the push. Yeah. Bro, that cost me at least 3 games, man. He always make it down to the 1 or 2-yard line. And here comes
2 people calling out Cole Kmet for 1,000 yards, though.
You think Cole can get it? Hey,
I would say the reason why I would say no is not enough targets, not enough footballs to go around this year.
Yeah.
I feel like Cole could be the one who actually takes a big hit this year.
For sure.
Not long term, but I think this year we're going to have a plethora of weapons with Keenan Allen, who's probably only going to be here 1 year. Gerald Everett, who's only going to be because Gerald Everett's going to take some of that load off of him at tight end, where he doesn't always have to be the underneath guy, because Cole Kmet's probably the better blocker than Everett. So there's going to be times when we got 2 tight ends, instead of the ball going to Cole Kmet like last year it did, because we couldn't throw to Tunyon, and Marcedes Lewis was basically just a blocker, but Everett might be an even better receiver than Cole Kmet. And that's not a knock on Cole Kmet. You guys know I love Cole Kmet, but Gerald Everett is a guy, I've loved his game for a long time. If he's healthy, he's a really good weapon at tight end. So it's just with him on the roster and Keenan Allen, I don't think Cole Kmet could get 1,000 yards this year. But let's look into the future when Keenan Allen's gone and Gerald Everett's gone, and you got DJ Moore, Romo Dunze, and Cole Kmet, and then some other guys around him as well. Yeah, he could get 1,000 yards. If things go right this year and most of our guys stay healthy, I would say don't take any bet on Cole Kmet getting 1,000 yards. That's just hype right there.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. If Cole is getting 1,000 yards, then we're in trouble. That's how I really feel about the offense, too.
Bro, absolutely.
I got 1,000 yards in this offense, then something went wrong. That's how I feel like. Some guys went down, some guys got hurt. For that to happen, then we lost 2 receivers for most of the year. That's how I would feel about that. And then we know that Keenan Allen is going to also be occupying that space in the middle of the field, and he's going to get open before Cole does. And I'm not. This isn't a knock on Cole. Cole is that dude. I think Cole is a very well-rounded tight end. I think what he's become is everything I envisioned him to be. I know a lot of people didn't think that he deserved that contract extension last year. I thought that he did, because I've seen Cole work his ass off from year 1 to year 3. I've seen his body change. I've seen him get a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. And his game evolved. He became a blocking tight end. He didn't come into this league as a blocking tight end, but he became that guy. So I think Cole is everything that we need him to be. But I agree with Swift, man. Gerald Everett is that guy who can hit it up the seam and take a ball and hit his head on the goalpost. That's the difference between the Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. And then we have, like we said, that's the other guy in Keenan Allen who's going to be occupying space in the middle of the field along with DJ Moore. But hey, the fact that we can debate this and talk about this and people are having this conversation just means that we're in a great position, right?
Absolutely. That's what I get ready to say. We can sit here and have this debate. That means we're in a pretty damn good position.
Right.
And we haven't even brought up Valus Jones Jr. We haven't brought up Tyler Scott, who, guess what? Those guys, and again, we're not going to forecast or project, because last year we did it, and it was a royal letdown outside of DJ and Cole Kmet. But this year, I think it's safe to say, when they go 11 personnel, it's going to be some slow singing and flower bringing for whoever cornerback 2 and nickel is on the opposing defense. Because again, guys, that's what I'm looking at now. I'm looking at the defenses we playing. Do they have? Because I know the Titans, they got that corner from Kansas City Chiefs. What's his name? He's pretty good.
Yeah, they're the best corner.
Yeah,
the best nickelback in the league. They're saying.
But outside of him, cornerback 2 and 3 suspect. Same thing with the Titans. With the Texans. Same thing with the Colts. I'm looking at matchups for us and what's going to be advantageous, because our wide receivers, X, Y, slot, they could be interchangeable to create said mismatches. And if the ball comes out quick or play action or whatever the case may be, like, it shouldn't take, like last year, let's be honest, outside of DJ, the wide receivers in our locker room last year inconsistently got open. They inconsistently won their routes. And that led, or it was an offensive line breakdown, or reads being missed. Like, it was a combination of things, especially those first 4 games when we were just getting destroyed. Like, no one, but now, even if they drop, the back 7 we faced drop 10, 15 yards back, okay, I'm just going to dump it to Swift in the flat.
Yep.
Mhm.
Like if the adjustment is made from going on the center and the route concepts meshing with the drop backs, let me tell y'all something. There is no reason why Caleb shouldn't throw for about 4,500 yards. I'm gonna just be honest.
True
Like,
with it.
I agree.
And the bulk of those yards will be going to Keenan, DJ, or Rome, barring no injury, which we're not going to manifest or forecast. So I think Komet's numbers would dip a little bit, but I think combined with he and Everett, it'll be 1,000. But I don't know.
That, sure, yeah.
But
both our tight ends together, they can get
As a red zone threat, those guys should be the guys in the red zone getting touchdowns. So his touchdown number should go up probably.
Yeah. And I'm gonna say Keenan's coming back. He's gonna probably come back on a 2-year deal, to a 2-year extension. I don't see.
Now you're just going off. Hold on.
Hey.
I want to stay on topic here. Hold on. So what K Quay said here, Komet's yards per carry and yards after catch could go up, and that's where people should be looking at is the efficiency. Is people are just talking about yards. Oh, he should get 1,000 yards. No, I don't know if he's going to get enough opportunities to get 1,000 yards because of exactly what me and Samo said. Keenan Allen's going to be the guy eating over the middle of the field, and Gerald Everett's going to take some of his opportunities away from. But as far as efficiency goes, he could have a higher catch percentage. He could be wide open more. He could actually have more big highlight plays because defenses are going to be focused on so many other things. And that's another thing. If the defense chooses to focus on Cole Kmet over Gerald Everett, watch out because he's a sleeper. The more me and Samo talked about him, I was like, man, I'm ready for Gerald Everett to just go out here and feast on people. And it's gonna be awesome. This offense is just super exciting. We could probably talk about it forever, but I'm about done for the night. If you guys got any final thoughts, go ahead and get them in.
Hey, go check out Gerald Everett. If you haven't seen any highlights from Gerald Everett, I love it when he gets the ball in his hands. He turns into like this monstrous running back type of tight end. Like the guy he's freaky with the ball in his hand. Pause. Let me pause real quick. Hey.
No, man, I was going to agree with you. As soon as Gerald Everett gets that ball, he can just throw you out of the way. He's something to look for. And
he's a highlight reel. That guy's a highlight reel.
And like we were saying, and what you alluded to, Swift, I'll end on this, is it's not bad having all these weapons on the field because on paper, we can hit you anywhere we want to, right? So someone's always going to be open. There's not that one guy anymore you have to cover, and that's it. You take that one guy, you cover him, you've opened 3 other guys to go to now.
And honestly, you don't even know who do you double cover.
Exactly.
Like all 3 of them are absolute guys who could be number ones. Now, obviously, Rome Odunze is the guy who right now is the rookie, but I think Rome's upside is higher than Keenan Allen, which is crazy to say because Keenan Allen's going to be a Hall of Famer. So, yeah, that's how high I am on Rome Odunze. But, Will, you got any final thoughts, my man, over there?
No, man. Like I said, I'm just excited. Just that, like you said, like Semo said, the fact that we're debating who's going to be in what position to have 1,000 yards because we have too many in the cupboard versus having very limited resources. So I think it's going to be a great year for us. And that's why, like I stated, I see us going 12-5, 13-4. Let's go.
Hey, squat up and bear down, guys. Look.